This episode of Mark Bell's Power Project podcast is brought to you by Piedmontese beef. And I really want to talk about Piedmontese beef because, in my opinion, it is the most underrated, most untalked about, just underutilized tools when it comes to bodybuilders and their diets. Can you explain exactly why that is, Nsima?
Yeah, man, it's actually pretty awesome because we have a lot of bodybuilders on this podcast, and every single time we get one on, we always tell them about Piedmontese because when a bodybuilder goes on a bodybuilding diet, they're like, I want to eat low fat and, I can't eat a lot of calories. And they always end up eating chicken breast, tilapia, just really weak meats, just very weak birds. But Piedmontese is awesome because they have a lot of different options in terms of their meat that have a great amount of protein, like good amounts of protein, but not a crazy amount of fat. So you can be trying to do a diet and you can eat a lot of meat, a lot of red meat that tastes great, that's tender, without all of the extra calories. But I want to give this a big but because a lot of people are like, but I like fat. They also have a lot of options of different cuts of meat that have more amounts of fat. So if that's your jam and that's what you want to do, you have that option too. You can't lose.
I like that you added a big but. We love big butts.
We do.
Cannot lie. But seriously, stop eating weak birds, like Nsima just said. Head over to Piedmontese.com. That's Piedmontese.com. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off your order. And if your order is $99 or more, you get free 2-day shipping. Highly, highly, highly recommend you check out the flat iron steak because what Nsima just said, it's ridiculously high in protein and insanely low in fat. Go check that out right now.
Crazy.
I heard Eddie Murphy did some stand-up recently, and Joe Rogan was talking about it, and he's like, just came out and just annihilated everybody.
Oh my God. Was it recorded? Is it going to?
I'm not sure. I don't know. But yeah, Eddie Murphy was like.
Yeah, from like the rumors, and we're recording now, but from like the rumors of it all was like he would just host parties and he would just kind of be like, everyone's just hanging out, and then he would just get in front of everybody and just slay. Yeah. And just kill everybody.
Oh, man.
But just like being silly, and then everyone's like, dude, you got to. So that's. Man,
that's great to hear.
That's really good to hear that he's killing it.
I like him in Shrek.
He was really funny in Shrek.
Still never seen it.
Oh,
wait, really?
That's sad.
I don't care about it.
Wait, no, the first Shrek, you should see Shrek.
You actually really should. It's really fucking good.
So
you'll cry. It's a great movie.
It made you cry?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which part? Which part?
The whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Romantic.
Okay.
There's one. I just remember the one clip where Pinocchio said, like, they're like, say something that's a lie or whatever, and he's like, say you're wearing like chick's underwear or something, and his nose doesn't grow.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
That was a good thing about Shrek too, because it had a lot of like these sneaky adult humor bits that like parents could laugh at.
Yeah.
But kids would just be like laughing at everything. It was really good.
Like Austin Powers.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
I'll watch that with my kids.
Austin Powers is amazing.
Congrats, Mark.
Thank you.
Steak Shake. Chocolate sold out before we could even tell anybody that it was for sale.
It's gone.
It makes sense. The chocolate flavor's on.
Yeah.
Everyone likes chocolate.
Yeah.
Everyone likes vanilla too. Yeah, vanilla's great, but chocolate.
We're working on some salted caramel too.
Hell yeah.
You really are working on salted caramel?
Gotta represent all three of us.
Right? Here we fucking go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. And then vanilla, last time I checked, which was early this morning, was like already halfway gone. So that's, by the time you hear this, it's way too late.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're working on getting more. I just don't know when.
Yeah.
That'll be the question. I literally don't know when, but hopefully it doesn't take too long.
I literally don't know.
Yeah. We just popped some of these pills over here. Andrew was telling us they were working pretty good for him.
I dig them, yes.
Committed Mind stuff from our buddy Charles Brooks. It's Nootropic. What's it got in it, Andrew?
I can't remember.
We're popping pills and Nsima's laughing. But it's like, why do we keep getting so high on the show?
Andrew, go ahead. I just got to mention something.
No, so this one does have the 5-HTP. It does have L-theanine. It has caffeine. So anybody in the nootropic world will know smart caffeine, which is essentially just caffeine and L-theanine, and that combination right there will wake you up, but it will make you a little bit more charismatic. And then some of the alpha GPC in that one, the other day, the one that, like, the first time I took it, you were like, damn, Andrew, your comparisons you're making today are top. So it will help you kind of just bring shit from like out the back of your brain up to the forefront.
But that day was performance enhanced. We just learned.
Yes,
we're gonna have to start doing some P tests on this show. Find out what the hell's going on.
So
thought you were natty, bro.
once you go to the dark side, you can
it's
never
over.
claim it.
It's
over. But no, it felt good, and so I'm pretty pumped about it. Thanks, Charles Brook, dude, for
our boy
sending you some. Because
I think it's just committedmind.com. Is that right?
I could check.
He sent me a thingy for it. Anyway, he's just a buddy of ours, so if you want to check it out, if you're into nootropics. What you laughing about over there?
You overdo things, man.
What?
You really do. I just think it's so funny. And I never learned the lesson. I think I'm
insulted.
I didn't learn the lesson from the mushrooms.
It's not true, right?
Well, there was the one time we did mushrooms on air. And
I was like, let me do one. He's like, nah, you should do 3. 3's like, that's easy. And then I get super high. But like with these, right? Andrew's like, take 2. I take 2. And Mark's like, oh, I'm gonna take 4. Like, what the fuck?
See, you guys think I'm the devil on your shoulder, like in comparison to the angel on the other side of your shoulder. But really, you have 2 devils on your shoulder, and I'm the better of 2 devils. That's really the truth of it.
That makes more sense. Yes, that does make sense. But damn, man.
Yeah, so it's committedmindnootropic.com.
I can't wait. I can't wait for how this is going to feel. Mixed with some Mind Bullet too. About to be floating over here.
Yeah, so it'll with the Mind Bullet, you'll probably, I know today's conversation could get pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But you'll probably just feel a little bit better. And then again, the one thing that's undeniable with all of it is the caffeine. So you're going to get just a little bump in energy as well.
It's going to be fun. I wonder how much caffeine per serving, because I already had this espresso sheet. Caffeine, 100 milligrams. Ooh, Mark, you're about to be hype.
Per serving, though. How many is in a serving? Is
1 capsule.
Oh, shit.
Serving size of 1 capsule, 100 milligrams of caffeine.
That's
and Mark
huge.
had 4, and he had coffee.
That's great.
Something big's going to happen.
It's...
You have water, man? Okay, good. You're going to need that.
Yeah, water it down.
How many milligrams of alpha GPC?
Alpha GPC.
It's the first one.
It's the first one. 200 milligrams of alpha GPC.
That's impressive for 1 capsule.
Yeah. Yeah, serving size 1 capsule.
So that's about... Yeah, okay.
I'm excited for today's guest. It's always good to have military folks on the podcast. It's been a little bit since we've had anybody on, and Eddie Gallagher is somebody that was brought up to me by Carl Lenore. He's like, you got to have this guy on the podcast, and he's like, I just think he's got a lot of interesting things to say. What I'm interested to learn is like, how do you go through something that is so publicly known and like survive it? He obviously is he's a very strong individual, being a Navy SEAL and all the training that he's gone through, and he's learned a lot of the things that we talk about on the show often about, choosing, to be happier. And he had a lot of training that I'm sure, taught him how to get through some tough times. But how do you deal with, I guess, like public perception of you being this horrible person? He's was accused of, murdering a terrorist, and it's just kind of a confusing thing because, we go to war and we have soldiers do certain things. They get certain orders. And then, I don't know what line is too far. I don't even knowing like if war is even like, it brings up a lot of questions, I would say that just by our history, I could say that war appears to be necessary since it's always been around. There must be a reason to fight, I guess. As much as none of us probably really want to see anybody die, things get weird when people are doing things that are maybe inappropriate. And so, I'm excited to talk to him and just kind of see how he's dealt with some of the adversity and some of the fallout, especially after having such an illustrious career in the military.
Yeah, I think war is a very interesting thing because like this is coming from the point of view of 2 civilians, all of us, actually, none of us have been in war. But when you hear people talk about it, it's like that does change individuals. After year 1, year 2, year 3, they see things that we have no literally conception of. We can't conceive.
Just saw it in a movie, maybe. That's about it.
And barely. Like we barely see anything like what those guys see, especially like SEAL teams. Like they have to do these like CQC things where they go into buildings and there's a lot of killing that's involved, and a lot of it's super gruesome. But when people get used to that, it's like when you get accustomed to something, let's just say, we get accustomed to something like working out. It's not hard for us to do. And when they get used to something also, it's not hard for them to do. But the curious thing I have is because like the thing surrounding him is like the photo and then all of that type of stuff. Like I'm just curious, like how they were perceiving it with everything that they've gone through at that point.
Right.
Cause I feel like it's so different. Like like us, we'll look at things and the things that have happened and like, you know, again, everything will be like, oh, that's so horrible. That's so evil. But I don't think we realize that they are in such a different mind space over there. They're not living these nice lives that we're getting to live over here. So this is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, their mindset has to be different, right? You got to like kind of be, you got to be ready for anything, right? So, I mean, you must be kind of on edge, to say the least.
Yeah, I can't even. A family member of mine, he was, I don't know exact titles and all that, but he was in the tanks and stuff, and he's seen some shit, and it's so crazy because he's just like, yeah, he's like, it'll stick with you. He's like, but it's not that bad. But then, like, Stephanie went to high school with somebody who also, he had a bunch of experiences, and it took him. Like, he committed suicide. So it's like, holy shit. Like, I don't really know. Like, they talk about it, but maybe they don't talk about it enough. You know what I mean? Like, it should be more open, but it's just crazy. Like how on one side, he was like, man, it's not too bad. And then the other side, the complete worst.
Yeah.
It's scary.
I definitely think that when it comes to people like us, again, like people like civilians, when we hear certain things that happens during war, we just need to remember that, when you're put in certain situations, it can change the way you do certain things. Absolutely, like 100%, So we can't necessarily, like, there's this idea that we have to, we judge something that people do, but like, again, remember, that's a totally different situation than we're in here.
Right.
There he is.
Hello.
Yo.
All right. We made a connection over here.
Awesome.
How's it going, Eddie?
Good, man. How you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic.
Great.
I'd like to kind of kick things off with, I guess, starting out from the beginning. What prompted you to want to be in the military, or did you even want to be in the military? How did that come to be?
Well, I grew up in a military family. So my dad was in the Army for, I think it was 20-something years.
Oh, wow.
So I bounced around every 2 years growing up. Grew up most of my childhood in Asia on Army bases. But by the time I had graduated high school, I had like no real intentions of joining till about a year after, when I tried college out and then decided to work odd jobs and realized like none of that was for me. I needed to get out and make something of myself. So I went the military route and decided to join the Navy. I didn't really have any idea that I wanted to be a SEAL until I got into the recruiting office, and then I was like, yeah, okay, if I'm going to be in the military, I want to do, something extraordinary or something hard.
What's it mean to be a Navy SEAL? Because we hear that thrown around a lot, and a lot of us civilians don't know shit about the military. And so I guess I understand some aspects of like the Navy, but what's it mean to be a SEAL?
So a SEAL, we're part of the special operations community. So you have the different branches have their own special operations. So the Navy has the SEALs, Army has the Green Berets or Rangers, Air Force has PJs, and the Marine has MARSOC. We're all pretty much do the same job, which is to work behind, enemy lines or do operations to either capture or kill the enemy or target. But we go about it differently than other branches. We're water-based. So we do a lot of stuff in the water. Should be good at swimming for sure. And then, but because of the past 2 decades of war, we've sort of not switched, but we've been a lot more focused on land-based. So we've sort of joined the ranks with the Green Berets and everybody else when it comes to doing stuff land-based. So I mean, we're considered like the jack of all trades, master of none. So we can do air. So SEAL stands for sea, air, and land. So we can operate in any of those environments.
Were you always physical before you even entered into the military? Were you already working out and running and things like that?
It wasn't a huge priority like it is now for me. I definitely grew up playing sports. I played, soccer, basketball, baseball. I was always involved in something. So I had the background of that. But yeah, I'd say I was pretty physical growing up, but I didn't have the depth of knowledge that I do now of working out and maintaining that.
How long did it take you to because you were pretty high up in the military before you left. So how long did it take you to reach the rank that you got into, and what exactly what was your rank? What does it mean?
So I retired as a chief, which is an E7. So I was enlisted. You have the officers in the military, and you have the enlisted officers. Usually they have a college education and they get commissioned and become officers. Enlisted, you can just join right out of high school. It took me a lot longer to get to E7, not because I couldn't do it, it's because I didn't want to. I tried to put that off as much as possible. I think there's, in the SEAL teams, once you hit a certain rank, which is E7, after that, you are pretty much hanging up your guns and you're more in a leadership role. You're more in a back, in the rear leadership role, advising. I still was super healthy and super motivated. I just wanted to be a door kicker, go out with the guys. So I tried to extend that as much as possible by not putting on rank. But eventually that caught up to me around 17 years, and they were like, hey, you need to, take on this leadership role, which I was like, I knew it at that point. It's like, okay. But picking up E7, it varies for each individual. There are certain wickets you have to hit going through your career, and usually those are leadership wickets. Whether it starts off something small as a fire team leader, squad leader, and then LPO, which is second in command enlisted, and then you get to a chief. But yeah, each person has their a different time and route to get to that rank. Some guys pick it up quick, and then some guys try and put it off.
Taking the ownership of being a leader is one thing. Maybe if you're talking about business, or if you're leading some people through some exercise, leading some people through a class or teaching them something, but leading people through potentially losing their lives or being at war has got to be just an enormous responsibility. Is that why a lot of people maybe don't they'd rather wish to kind of stay on the ground floor and not have to be in those positions to, give an order and then, have that weight of that particular operation be on them, kind of thing?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think so. In the SEAL teams, you're in a leadership role no matter what rank you are. So even the lowest guy is in charge of either individuals, or we're in charge of thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of gear or equipment. So from the beginning, when you get into the SEAL teams, you are expected to be a leader. And in the SEAL teams, you are expected to know the next person's job. So if that person gets fired or gets shot or gets killed, you can pick up that position just like that. I think putting it off to, on the top leadership role, especially for the enlisted, that sort of goes back to guys they know that's the last sort of hoorah of okay, I'm going out with the boys, and then I'm going to pick up rank, and that's it. Then I'm going to be back in the office, and I think some guys don't want to do, they're not ready for that, which I wasn't either. I was still healthy enough to be running and gunning with the younger guys. But that's on each individual when they make that decision. For me, it was, I just did not want to hang up the guns.
What are some common characteristics that you've seen amongst great leaders that you've worked with?
Big one is leading by example. The do as I do, not do as I say. I think that's huge. But then, I think, leadership is is very harped upon in the military itself. But I don't think that the military, they're not the end all be all when it comes to leadership. They're still working on that too. I think you being a good leader is you learn as you are leading. You learn as you go. You're going to make mistakes. It's learning from those mistakes and moving on. But another trait is knowing the people that you're in charge of, sort of investing the time to know who they are, especially in today's climate where, everybody sort of gets butthurt about everything.
Sort of.
Yeah. I try to be as polite as possible.
Let it fly, Eddie. Let it fly.
Yeah, everybody's triggered. Everybody's feelings are involved now. So I think in today's climate, you're gonna have to know the individuals that are working for you. And I'm not saying you need to deep dive into them and walk on eggshells around them, but you should know, like, what are their strengths, weaknesses, what are they not good at? And then whatever, they are good at and their strengths, well, then you delegate stuff to them that empowers them, that they can use those strengths, at the same time, sort of helping them pick up on their weaknesses as well. I think that's huge. And then, you learn that as you go. I had my last platoon when I was in charge. I made some mistakes. I was learning as I went. I was dealing with sort of a new generation of SEALs who are very much, like we had just talked about, sort of in tune more with their feelings. And, you're getting my feelings hurt, or, because you said this, where a big example is, when I was a new guy coming into the teams, my platoon chief, the guy would smack us on a regular basis or call us a bitch or whatever, whatever mood he came in. Now we sort of expected that. We were like, okay, I'm a new guy, just if he called me, if he said something to me that was negative, I would then reflect on myself, like, am I being that way, or is this, but I think nowadays these people, when you say something to some of this new generation, it's automatically, no, this is your fault, not mine. Mm-hmm. Like, how dare you say that to me? How dare you say I didn't do a good job? So I was definitely battling with that. I was, I didn't know how to at first talk to these guys, or like I couldn't even understand where they were coming from when they would complain about their feelings being hurt or whatever else.
Did it sound a little bit entitled or something?
Yeah, there's definitely a huge entitlement role going on. At least with some of the guys in my platoon. And so I didn't really know how to deal with that at first. I don't think I dealt with it the right way a couple times. I just called them out and was like, you guys are being entitled little bitches. And then they would take offense to that. And then that would just go down more spiral into their emotions and feelings. So I would say, looking back, I could have been more in tune with, like, all right, caring about their feelings or their complaints,
There's no bad soldiers, only bad leaders. Have you ever heard that before?
Oh, yeah.
Do you believe that?
No, I don't think that's entirely true. I do believe in taking ownership as a leader. I know I don't know if you guys have heard Jocko Willink.
Absolutely, yeah.
So he preaches that extreme ownership, which I do think that's the right way to go. You should always try and take accountability when you can. But at the same time, some people that work for you just aren't meant to work there. They just don't belong. And there's only so much you can do to bend over backwards for them to help, make them feel like they belong or help them along. And if they're not changing, then it's like, you need to cut that cord and be like, dude, no, you're out of here, and if you can have bad soldiers.
So like in your time, you've probably seen people that they're in the Navy, and maybe they quote unquote become a Navy SEAL, but maybe they're not a soldier necessarily, because there's probably some sort of innate the nature of some of this to some degree, and there's probably just some traits that I'm sure are like learned and taught, but there's got to be some other, like I don't think there's any way that I could ever learn how to do any of those things. I don't I don't know if I'm brave enough to even try any of that stuff. And I've heard from other people kind of say, well, it's because you're part of a team, you're part of a squad, and you're doing it for the other people. But like, I don't even know if I care about other people enough to even do that, to even meet people halfway. So I totally understand your point there. And I think that's well put, because you could have people that are soldiers and they have all the right intentions, and maybe they learned a lot of the skill sets, but maybe when it comes down to it, they just weren't meant for battle.
Yeah. And I think that comes down to your belief system, to where like, why did you join? Why did you want to be a Navy SEAL? I just wouldn't even go anywhere near it, because I know it's not, I don't think it's for me. But it's, you see it in the community as well. It's always been like this. Guys join for different reasons. Not everybody wants to be a SEAL for the same reason. Some guys join it because they want to just have a career as a SEAL, pick up rank. They just enjoy having the trident and, training or doing the job. Other guys join to go to war. Like I joined specifically. I want to go to war. I want to fight, but I want to fight with the best. And so you have these two groups, in the teams, and they definitely sometimes end up coinciding and not. It's sort of, there's a mix up. That's sort of like my last platoon. I had half and half. Some guys were just there because they wanted to be a SEAL, but they actually didn't want to go do the job. When the bullets start flying, that's when you see. I'll tell you that, like when the bullets start flying and impacting around you, you see whose belief system is what.
Sorry, I don't know. Yeah, the process for becoming a SEAL, but just as a just normal person, I would think that there's going to be some checks and balances. Like if you can't learn how to deadlift by reading a blog, right? You have to go out and do it. So is there something like that to become a Navy SEAL, where like you have to have some time like behind enemy lines, or like I'm just trying to think that if half of your platoon was definitely shouldn't have not been there. I mean, that's a huge miss, and I'm just curious, like how, not that they slid through or they snuck in, but like how was that possible?
So it wasn't half my platoon. That was, the media and everybody was putting on like his whole platoon, half his platoon. It came down to two or three guys. That was it. That'll be all in the book of how this all came to be. But when it comes to guys sort of slipping through, there's only so many checks and balances, so much you can do to see if guys are going to be prepared for actual combat, right? And I'll tell you, we do a hell of a job simulating that environment through our training. We go through stress inoculation constantly. We pretty much train harder than we would fight at war. So we have a saying, the more you bleed in training, or the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in war. So, but to that extent, like, these guys, the guys that I found out didn't belong, they did fine during training. There was no question marks. I was like, hey, these guys, are locked on. They know what they're doing. But the thing is, we're not getting shot at with live rounds. We're getting shot at, with simunition through that whole time. It's not until those rounds start flying, and I've seen it before, where guys are like, okay, this is not cool. Like there's a possibility I could die. And they make that decision after that deployment to get, like, this job isn't for me. I'm going to get out. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not cowardice. That's just, they came and they tried out, they made it to the teams, went to actually do the job, found out that maybe, hey, this isn't for me, and got out. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. What these guys did is they found out they weren't meant for the job. They were cowards on deployment. And then instead of sort of taking ownership, being like, hey, I probably should get out, this job isn't for me, they flipped the tables and were like, no, this is your fault. You put us in this position. You made us go out all the time and, get firefights, and then they tried to get rid of me.
I was curious about this because when you were talking about the new generation and, like, I guess the entitlement and also the quick way to like put blame on others, when you were talking about when you were coming up in the military, how like you were just used to certain things, right? And I feel also that when in the military, if I picture that environment, there needs to be a certain level of just toughness. There needs to be a certain level of, you know, just take this and go, right? It's not like in a workplace, in a fucking workplace here, your boss can't just like say, hey, bitch, get it. Like, right? That can't happen. But in the military, you gotta be fucking, it seems that you gotta, that's an environment that you have to be hard. You know, you there can't be softness there.
Go to HR department.
You can't go to, and then this is another thing. It's like, right? Like, I feel like with the new generation, my generation, there is a level of understanding emotions better, which is a benefit. But potentially in that setting, it might not be that beneficial to be super emotional, and that made me feel bad. And so what I'm trying to get at here is like, when you were coming up, you were used to that level of hardness. Is there any benefit to being more in tune with one's emotions in those types of situations?
I definitely think there is. I mean, there's definitely a huge benefit to having what they call like emotional intelligence, which is like, okay, hey, you know, I'm feeling this way because you said, you know, this, and you could do all that jive. And that is a huge benefit. When I did my first 4 years with the Marine Infantry unit. There's definitely no emotional intelligence there. It's do what I fucking say and do it now. And if you don't do it correctly, I'm going to come down on you, you know, or, you know, that you're getting yelled at. You got to have thick skin. And you also got to sort of know, like, this is the military. Like, our main goal, all of the military, is to go to war. There's no other like component like, oh, we do this, or we're protecting the country by going to war. That's the end state. Mm-hmm. So you do have to have, you would think, some thick skin, and then some also fortitude, you know, to do that job, but also, you know, to take criticism, or if somebody's yelling at you, it's like, hey, and I always say to someone screaming at me, like, well, no one's shooting at you, so just listen to what they're saying. And that's the thing. And I think what goes with being in touch with one's feelings or emotions with this, you know, emotional intelligence is being able to take that on board, but also knowing when to shut the fuck up. Like, you don't have to respond back. Just like, okay, I got it. All right, you know, and then move on. A lot with what I saw with these guys, there was always something to come back to. You know, it was always, oh, why are you doing this? Why? Until, you know, you answer the question in a way that it was going with their agenda. Yeah, it was pretty tricky, but I definitely am a big advocate for emotional intelligence. I think that makes you just a better operator and better warrior.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand maybe potentially what somebody's going through. You know, they're super young, they're away from home. This is their first time, like, without their phone. You know, you know, there's a lot of things at play. They miss their girlfriend, and you're thinking, hey, look, we have a job to do here. I don't really care that much. I kind of care about it because I went through the same thing, but we don't have time to like sit around and like play patty cakes over it. You know, we don't have time to like sit here and like cry on each other's shoulders about it. And I think just being aware and saying, hey, look, I know that this is happening to you, but we have fucking training to get to. I think that part of it is important. But I think what's really hard is to get somebody to have somebody do something because you want them to do something, and not have them do it because they want it to be for the betterment of the overall cause, I think is where the problem lies the most. Because maybe they have a misunderstanding of, hey, I'm not trying to bark orders at you. I'm not trying to say something in particular to you to set you off. I'm not trying to have this be a negative component of your life. I'm trying to move forward with the entire team executing really well. And in order for the team to execute really well, I don't really care that much that you don't want to clean out the shitter, but you have to because that's your job for this month or whatever the job might be, right? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that, you know, through that, I actually had meetings like that multiple times through the deployment, to where I would sit down. I called them the kumbaya sessions with them, like, hey, okay, what's going on? What are the main problems here? Like, because I was seriously like sort of concerned, like what's going on. And, what it came down to, each time was they were like, you're working us too hard. Like, we don't want to go out as much. Well, that complaint is invalid when you're laying siege to a city that's like 5 times the size of San Diego that has been pretty much barricaded and prepped for the past 3 years by ISIS. I mean, there's no days off here. Like, our job, our objective is to clear Mosul and get rid of ISIS. We were told right when we came in, and this was by our higher command, like, you guys need to be aggressive as fuck the next 6 months. Like, we will clear ISIS and we will kill every ISIS individual in there. Like, that's the main goal.
And ISIS isn't really around anymore. Doesn't like you guys were successful, I guess, right?
We definitely were successful. And yeah, we cleared Mosul in 6 months, which it was the western side of Mosul, which they said couldn't be done when we got there. Like, oh, it's going to take years. We got it done along with our fellow brothers of Mars. I fell under MARSOC, and then there was a couple other SEAL platoons out there. But we got the job done. But it took working every day, going out every day, and you are risking your life. There was a lot of risk. We try to mitigate risk when we go out, but in that environment, there's only so much you can mitigate. And then some of it's like, hey, if something happens, it happens. But we're doing this for a reason, to get rid of evil. These guys, they didn't see it that way. They literally said verbatim, like, this isn't our fight. This isn't our war. We shouldn't be here. I mean, that's why I talk about belief system. That was their belief going into it, where as I and a lot of people, guys that I came up with from the 9/11 generation, where, we were in for 9/11, and that's the reason we've been fighting so long, have a completely different outlook. And so you have those two belief systems sort of butting together, which I think caused a lot of the friction as well.
You mentioned that these individuals tried to get rid of you, and what does that mean? How did they try to get rid of you? My understanding is that they accused you of murder, something to that extent, but I don't know the exact details. I don't want to misword it. So
I'll just do try to do a quick overview of exactly how this transpired to what it became, and honestly, it's embarrassing for the Navy or NSW, but it's exactly what happened. These guys, we ended the deployment. We cleared it. It was a good deployment. But like I said, a couple of these guys were still holding a grudge against me for I did call them out near the end of deployment. So they held this grudge against me. They were creating a toxic environment behind the scenes. We went back and managed to get a couple more guys on their side. They were avidly doing the sort of a campaign during that deployment behind my back and behind some other leaders' back, trying to get people to take their side. They got about 2 more guys, on their side, and there was nothing brought up about murder or any of the stuff I really got charged with. What it started out as is they came back and said that I was a bad leader, I was too aggressive, that my tactics were bad, right? They went to the leadership with this, and the leadership said, okay, give us examples of how he's a bad leader. And they couldn't, or bad tactics, they couldn't give anything that would justify their complaint. The leadership's like, nope, that's a tactic. We've been doing that forever. That doesn't sound like bad leadership. That sounds like he was trying to get the job done. So they told him, like, unless you have real complaints, move on. It sounds like you guys just need to decompress. About 2 weeks later, they'd come back like, okay, well, now we have evidence that he was stealing from us. And they're like, okay, well, what was he stealing? Again, there was really nothing. Everything got, they're like, he was stealing, I think they said power bars or protein bars we would get care packages. Those care packages are for everybody. So they were like, that's not stealing. And I think the command got really concerned, and they were like, what is going on here? Why are you guys continuing to come with these petty allegations? And the command even asked them, they're like, is there something else that we should know about? Did he commit any crimes, anything over there that we need to be concerned about? These guys said no. They asked him 3 different times. They denied it all 3 times, and this is what they told them. They said, unless there's something like that, like a crime, a war crime, then nothing, is going to happen to Eddie Gallagher. Like, he's going to move on with his career because I got ranked #1 chief coming back. I got very high praises from my leadership from everybody else but these 3 individuals. So because they said that to them, like, hey, unless there's something like war crimes, nothing's going to be done, they sort of coached these guys into, like, these guys are like, okay. They come back 5 months later, and they're like, okay, yeah, he committed a war crime. This is 5 months after all these conversations, almost a year after the deployment.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, what did he do? They're like, oh, he stabbed a ISIS prisoner to death. And this is the kicker. They told the command, like, we have it on video, and unless you don't kick him out of the Navy, take away his rank, and take away his award, I was put in for a Silver Star, then we are going to give the video to CNN, and it's going to look bad for the whole community. So the command, instead of calling their bluff or being like, well, let us see the video, they just bowed down to what they wanted. And literally within like a week, my award was gone. I couldn't pick up, my rank was gone, and they pulled me, out of pretty much the job. And they went and told NCIS, who's at their Naval Criminal Investigative Service. It's sort of like the FBI for the Navy. Not even FBI, but it's sort of like they're investigators for the Navy. They look into crimes. They told NCIS about these allegations. No one looked at the videotape. No one asked to see the videotape. From once NCIS got the accusations, that's when it skyrocketed. The lead NCIS agent named Joe Warpinski, he was probably the worst element to add into all this drama because he had the worst combinations of ambition and incompetence. He wanted to make a name for himself. He's like a Navy SEAL accused of murder. If I can put this guy away, then I'll make, this will be a huge career maker for me. So he went into this investigation, not forming an investigation, but more of a prosecution from the beginning. He cherry picked pieces of evidence that made me look bad, and then anything that made me look innocent, he hit it. They ended up raiding my house when I wasn't home, my wife wasn't home. NCIS sent like a 25-man SWAT team, like armed to the teeth, pulled my 2 kids out, 8-year-old and just turned 18, in their underwear in the street, and then laid siege to my house. And from there, that's when my wife and I were like, what is going on? This is unreal. And it just sort of kept skyrocketing from there. They finally came about a month and a half later after they had raided my house and then arrested me and threw me in military prison with no charges. No one would tell me what I did. I sat in military prison for about 2.5 months until I was officially charged with murder. And from there, it was just a fight to sort of combat the narrative that they were putting out and prove my innocence. And I finally, it all came out during the trial. And that was what the most amazing thing was, all these guys' lies. Because these guys had lied from the beginning, it caused everyone else to lie that was sort of taking their side. And that all culminated at the trial.
And then when they were in trial, like one of the other guys admitted to what he accused you of, I think, right?
Yeah.
That's
yep. So I had,
wild.
When I was in military prison, I had 2 of the guys visit me that had sort of been sucked in by the accusers, and they got them on their side. They came to prison and told me that they were lying. They knew this was a lie, and their conscience got the better of them, and they're like, "We're sorry, we did this." But at that point, you couldn't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Like this was going full speed ahead. I was being charged, like I said, with murder, but I was facing life in prison without parole. Like that's what I was getting. There was nothing else on the table.
What was the like when you first got news of this the first time? Like where were you? Were you still like in the military, or were you home for a little bit, or like what was going on in your life, and how did you feel? Were you like in total disbelief, or were you just like, well, that's never going to become a thing because I never did that. So that sounds like a bunch of bullshit. I've been accused of a bunch of stuff, and I didn't do that, and this will probably never come to mean anything.
Yeah, so I knew when we got back from that deployment, I had guys coming up to me that I knew that were saying, "Hey, these guys are saying some crazy shit." Like at first, like I said, it was all that I was a thief, I was too aggressive, I was that. Yeah, I knew none of that was true. So it really did, it ticked me off that I was being called a thief. I was like, hey, I did have a meeting with the guys, and I was like, I want to know what I stole from you. I've never been called a thief before. Please tell me there's something. And they couldn't produce anything. They were just like, when this was like 2 or 3 guys talking, they're like, oh, we just don't like you. I'm like, all right, then move on. I don't like you guys either. I'm not going to let it run my life. But then as the time went on, I would hear like sort of crazier and crazier accusations or rumors. And the SEAL teams are like one big rumorville. It's like high school. Just think it's the most dramatic. As much as these guys are alpha males and warriors, we talk shit about each other nonstop, and it gets pretty toxic. So I'd been in long enough at that point to where I was like, rumors are rumors. I'm not even going to address them. It wasn't until they started getting crazy where I was like, oh, now they're saying you murdered somebody, where I was like, okay, this is fucked up. I went and actually asked for someone to launch an investigation into it, so I could an internal investigation, because I was like, let's just clear this and get this over with, because these guys going around spreading these rumors is getting out of hand. I had one of the Master Chiefs come talk to me about it, just the one time anybody talked to me the whole time, and I told him that these aren't true, and I don't know what else to say. But unfortunately, the military, and this goes through all the military, you are guilty until proven innocent. They're like, well, you have to prove that you didn't do this. So it literally just took them verbalizing he murdered somebody, and that was enough to start moving forward. But yeah, my wife and I both sort of turned the other cheek that whole time. We were like, hey, this is going to go away. This is ridiculous. Until, like I said, our house got raided. Then we're like, oh, okay, this is real.
Okay. Two things I'm actually curious about. The video that they said that they had, what would people have seen in the video? Because you mentioned stabbing. So what were they talking about if that video was shown? And then secondly, we're saying you were accused of murder, right? What I heard though was that like the individual that was murdered was a terrorist. And I mean, you guys, can you explain to us why this situation was murder? Because you said that you guys were on an operation to go into this place and kill a bunch of ISIS operatives. So there must have been a lot of murder going on if that's the case. So what was so significant about this that it's like, this was murder? Yeah.
So I think everybody had the same reaction, just like you did. Like, how is this murder? What the prosecution at NCIS did, well, this is what their narrative, and today it doesn't make any sense to me either. I'm like, so to clarify, it was premeditated murder.
Okay.
So they said that I had the intention, and it still makes me laugh just even thinking about it. I had the intention that day of murdering a combatant that was in our care. And just saying, it sounds ridiculous to even think that like I would have that thought process. Like, you know what, today I'm going to capture a guy, then kill him. But that's what narrative they were putting out the whole time. So they were saying that as soon as we had the guy in our care and we were treating him, then he was no longer a terrorist. He was a patient. So because I killed the patient, then that's premeditated murder. And they said I had it all planned out from the beginning, which their whole narrative got torn apart during court. It was because it was so amateur and so ridiculous. As far as the video was played during the trial. It actually shows the opposite of what they were saying. It shows me coming up with the med bag. The terrorist, we had just bombed the terrorist, about him and 20 other guys, and all of them died except him. He was pretty much on his deathbed. Our Iraqi partner forces brought him back to us. They, on the hood of a Humvee, I mean, he was bleeding out. I grabbed the med bag and ran up and started treating him, assessing him. And that's all the video showed. So it showed me coming down with the med bag. He, I think, tries to lunge up at me, not lunge up, but like reach up to grab me. I pushed him back down and started treating him. And then it cuts off at some point. So they were saying at some point after that, they said that I treated him, and then I went insane and took out a knife and started stabbing him in the neck. And that's what they went with. Mm-hmm. And so it,
let me help you recover so I can kill you.
Yeah, basically. And I'll tell you this, and this is going to come out in the book. So
strange.
We had no one, like, we didn't care if this guy lived or died. He was just trying to kill us. You know, we were treating him to death pretty much. Like, hey, we'll just do these treatments on, because he was going out. There was no plans on medevacing him, no plans on taking him to a hospital. We were just like, hey, we'll just do these treatments until he's dead. Everybody there was on board with it. Even the accusers were involved in doing some treatments on him. But, you know, of course, none of that was said, you know, during the trial, well, until the trial, when it came out. And then it came out that video was a big lie, what they were saying. It's, you know, because they were telling everybody it showed me stabbing the guy, and it did, you know, it showed nothing. That video was used as a weapon the whole time I was locked up. They were telling members of Congress, all the way up to the White House, that there was a video showing me doing the stabbing, and that nobody should support me. They should get on board with persecuting me. And thank God that we had President Trump at that time, and I think he took sort of a deep dive into it, and so did some certain members of Congress, and they got behind me. And I mean, that's a huge part of the reason why I'm talking to you right now, and not in prison.
It's got to be a weird thing to go through, where you feel like you have to constantly kind of clear your name. You know, like even amongst family, you know, one of your younger family members, you know, learns that Uncle Eddie is accused of this, or hears it from someone in school, or hears a rumor circulating. That's got to be like just really, really tough to deal with. And you say, oh, no, it's a misunderstanding, you know, but no one else is accused of murder. You know what I mean? So it's a tough thing to have, just have ever even been in any sort of contact with. How do you deal with that? Is you and your wife, you know, decide like, hey, we got to stay closer than ever? Or did you get with family and friends and say, we got to really shut the world out for a little bit and just take a deep dive into us moving forward as a family type thing?
So during the whole thing, when I was locked up in the trial, my family was a rock. My wife and my brother were both, I mean, those two are my heroes to this day. I don't know how they got the strength to do what they did, but they pretty much created a campaign. My wife started an Instagram account and organically just put out all the stuff that was happening to me, trying to get people to pay attention, because I had a lot of rights being violated. Like I said, I was locked up for no reason. So she got a huge following. My brother, who had worked on Capitol Hill in the past, went down to D.C. and was knocking on doors of Congress for weeks on end, trying to get somebody to pay attention. And this is what we learned during that process is the media, if they put something out, whether it's false information or whatever, that's the first thing they see and they believe it. So they had a hard time getting people to sort of get on my side, because the media was smearing me at the same time, writing all these smear articles, and it was all misinformation. But the blessing in all that is the people that stuck with us and knew me and knew like this doesn't make any sense. That was probably one of the biggest blessing, you know. But that circle of people was smaller than I thought would be. But because of that, I was able to cut the fat out of my life. I'm like, hey, if you aren't going to get behind me, you know who I am. We've known each other for years, but if you're going to believe the BS that's putting out there, then all right, man, I'll see you when I see you. But then afterwards, that it was a lot tougher to deal with, I think, after the trial, because I had proven my innocence, but it didn't matter. The media was already on a full frenzy to they make me look like a psychopath, like a warmongering psychopath killer, and that didn't stop after the trial. Certain entities of the media, New York Times for one, they would just write. I think it was months after the trial, months after I got out of the Navy, they were writing an article a month, just smearing me nonstop. So we sort of learned to tune all that out. You get to a point where it does bother you, but if you just let it bother you, it's going to ruin you. It's going to eat you up from the inside. So we learned to sort of close all that out. Your opinion doesn't matter to me. I know the truth. You can think what you want, but that went away last year. I think the more we just ignored it and then wouldn't address all the negative stuff, it dissipated.
I'm curious about this. If you could because again, all of us here civilians, so we don't necessarily understand how I guess war can change individuals. Because one of the big aspects of when people look into the story and what happened was the picture, right? The picture was and that was what was used in a lot of things that the news put forward. And even when I first started learning about it, I was kind of shocked, because initially I was like, damn, these dudes taking pictures with a dead body, right? But at the same time, when I was thinking about it, I was like, well, I mean, okay, looks pretty bad. It doesn't look good. But at the same time, I would assume when people get used to being in war, and the enemy, who's doing very evil things, you're very used to killing the enemy, maybe at some point they start to be dehumanized, as far as right? The enemy is no longer just a human being with their issues. They're just the enemy that's doing evil shit. And they're not, maybe does that happen? Do I guess soldiers
get detached
from this is almost when people will go and they hunt lions, and you see them, they post on Instagram they post on Instagram a kill, right? And people are like, oh my God, that's so disgusting. And it's kind of fucked up. Yeah. But at the same time, they're used to, they shouldn't be killing lions, but they're used to that shit. Right. So what does that do when that photo was taken? Did they even feel, or did you guys really I guess, feel like that was still a person in a way?
I'd imagine it's pretty common,
right? I'd imagine it's a common thing to an extent.
Well, I still don't think that. I mean, I don't have any emotions about that person or the dude. I'm sent over there to do a job, and that's to, I don't. And this is the other thing. After you've been over on so many combat deployments, at least this is how it was for me.
Yeah.
My 5th or 6th combat deployment, you're going over there, you're being told hey, we're going over to fight because of 9/11, protect this country. But then it's okay, 2-3 deployments later, you're like, what are we still doing here? But then it turns into, now we're going to stay and try and stabilize Afghanistan and sort of bring our ways to them. It's okay, what's this got to do with defeating the enemy? Why are we staying here? And while you're doing that, at the same time you're fighting the enemy. And then that drags on, and then eventually you're like, what is why did we come over here? Why are we here? We still have American soldiers dying by these guys, but at the same time we're trying to protect people that don't want us there. They really don't. They're I think most of them are get the fuck out. They have their own way, and it's not our way, and that's fine. So I do think after fighting an enemy like that for so long, you do dehumanize them, especially the atrocities that you see that they commit, which you'll never see on the news. So I talk about this in the book as well. That deployment, especially, we would clear through this city after our partner force would sort of clear through first, and then we'd see, kids' heads on spikes. We watched randomly. They would send women and children out into a field and gun them down. We're watching that firsthand. You can't do anything about it. So yeah, I would say after seeing shit like that, I'm like, I have no, like, my feel sorry or sympathy button for those people is rubbed out. Like, I'm like, dude, fuck you. Like, I've seen what you do. And if you're part of that group, and maybe that individual didn't really fit into that agenda, maybe he just joined the group out of whatever, but either way, you're part of that group now, man. Like,
it's pure evil, it seems. Pure evil.
Yeah. And guess what? They think of us just the same way.
Yeah.
They hate us that much. So there's no room to be like, oh, well, maybe this person joined ISIS because his dad treated him wrong. I'm like, no. Like, sorry, bro. You chose the wrong side. You're getting smoked.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough position to be in, I guess some people would look at it as if you kill the person, now you are becoming them. Why would you personally believe differently that what they're doing is wrong and potentially what we're doing is correct?
Because that's otherwise. I mean, if I questioned it any other way, then I wouldn't be in the military.
Yeah,
I joined the military to protect this country. That's my number one priority. I do think those evil people are trying to come over here, and if they get any chance to come over here and hurt us, which they've shown in the past, the random shootings, the bombings that ISIS takes claim for, or Al Qaeda, like, they will come and harm us. And I think that's what people sort of forget. It's 9/11 happened almost 20. We're coming up on 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. That's 20 years ago, but it's like, you do remember like what they did, and they're still planning to do it again. But the only reason they haven't, because people are like, well, it's been so long. It's like, because we've been over there making sure it stays over there and not over here. That's why it hasn't happened in such a big way again. But I mean, as soon as we start doing this softer approach, which is happening, and like, oh, well, okay, let's try and be friends, it's only a matter of time before it happens over here again, because they generally hate us. They hate everything we stand for. They don't care what color you are. They don't care, what type of American you are. They hate you just because you're an American, because they cannot stand our belief system. And I'm not saying that's everybody over there. I'm saying that's these extremist groups that we're fighting.
I was say, I think it can be confusing sometimes for some of us that aren't involved at all. We don't really understand the circumstances and ISIS, and these are extremist groups, and it doesn't represent the entire population. And the people that they're executing, the people that are shooting, the kids that they're murdering, they're raping people and doing all kinds of crazy, evil stuff, like you said, that really you just don't really hear it talked about much. So it's not like we're over there randomly killing people that are evil or bad, but these are people that are trying to rule with terror and fear other people. Yep. And so the United States has been the world police for a very long time, and we are, doing what we think is best to go over there and handle some of those things. And as you said, I thought it was very well put, is that we're trying to keep it over that way. And I don't think we know any other good way of handling it, because I don't think, like you said, I don't really know if we could sit down with, with these people and have conversation that would lead us to anything different. Otherwise, war wouldn't exist, which I think everybody would be pretty pumped if we didn't have to fight, and if there wasn't evil and there wasn't people murdering people and there wasn't people hurting each other and things like that. But the world has never been that way.
No, war's been around since the beginning of humans. I mean, there's two definite things I know. There's good and there's evil, and that's the truth, and one has to prevail, and whatever you can look at it like, well, how do you know what's good or not? Like, that's your belief system, and I believe America is good. I believe America is one of the greatest country on the planet. Even with the little minute problems that we have now, like this, I think everybody thinks America's falling apart. Like, believe me, we're not even close. we're doing pretty good. If you go ahead and go to these other third world countries, that's when you can see true chaos. That's,
Did the military do anything to assist you through any of this process in like getting you a specific attorney or getting you some help from a mental perspective, send you to a doctor, get evaluated, get support for your family, anything like that?
No. So the one thing they did is, which they're mandated to do, is give me a military lawyer, a defender. But here's the kicker. The military defender that they assigned to me didn't live anywhere near me. He lived 5 or 6 hours from the military brig or prison I was staying in. So this guy, I didn't get a visit from him, and he's not a bad guy, but I didn't get a visit from him until I was in prison for about 2 months. And he told me, he was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to, I don't know why they assigned me to you, which they did it for a purpose, so I couldn't properly defend myself even with the lawyer they gave me. But that's the only thing I'll say they did for me. Other than that, no, they violated all of my, which they got in trouble for. They violated, I think, my 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. They refused to take me to medical. They refused to get me any type of care. It was full on an assault from the leadership of the Navy to try and make me look guilty and try to put me away, because they were like, we need to use him as an example. And they had their minds were made up. No matter what evidence or proof was shown to them, like, look, this is BS. They wouldn't look at it. They're like, nope, this is already happening. It's in full swing. And I think it escalated when the president got involved. Because the president got involved, then the military's ego was hurt, because he pretty much put the smack down and was like, let him out of prison so he can defend himself. And their ego got bruised. And then from there, their assault escalated on me. It was a very, very stressful time. There's a lot of stuff being done to me and my family that a lot of people don't know about, that of course is never reported. And that's why I wrote the book, because if I could sit here and tell you all the things that they did to me, and you would have a hard time believing it, because I would never believe it until it happened to me.
That. I was like, what were some of the things that they did? Because it's like, it's so weird to me how, like, you serve for these people, and first off, like, what were some things that they did? But then also, what were they trying to prove with you behind bars? Like, what were they trying to be like, okay, what were they trying to make an example of is the question there.
Yeah. So I think that, well, first off, they locked me away unjustly because they were still doing the investigation. So they're like, hey, if he's behind bars, he has no way to fight this. Like, we can say whatever we want, and he's not there to rebut it. He's locked away. That was the main reason they put me in prison. I was not a threat to anybody. I was like living my best life, trying to prepare to get out, to retire. And they made the choice that, hey, we're going to go ahead and throw him in prison and continue this investigation until we can find some legitimate charges. While I was locked up, my command, NCIS, and also the prosecution was they were telling guards to make me snap. So they would every day. So these guards would come in, strip me naked, do shit, like say shit to me to get me to try and fight them, so they could point the finger and be like, see, he is crazy. They would toss my cell all the time. They would deny me visitations. They would deny me I had medical appointments because of my trauma. I went to a TBI clinic and I had 2 bulging discs. They were like, nope, you can't have any of that. And they denied my lawyer visits. My lawyer would try and come visit me. This is my civilian lawyer that I hired. And they deny him talking to me. Now those are just the things that happened in the brig. On the outside, the prosecution, during the course while we were going to court, the judge said that there was a gag order on all the evidence, which meant nobody was allowed to see any of the evidence except for the defense, prosecution, and the judge. Like, It was illegal to share the evidence with anybody else. The prosecution was sneaking the evidence or leaking the evidence to the media the whole time, which is how you saw all those articles before I went to trial. Those were all smear articles of misinformation. They were doing that to promote their agenda, but also to sway the jury. So if they're like, if this gets out in the media enough and if he gets smeared enough, the jury's already going to come in here with a bias. So they were doing that the whole time. And this is how bad it is. Like, we would bring it up in court. We literally would get evidence, like a new batch of evidence that day that was already out in the media. So my lawyers were like, how is it that this is already out in the media and we're just now getting this? And we're like, we told the prosecution, like, are you guys leaking this? Nope. The judge would be like, okay, well, they said no, so move on. Like, there's no checks and balances. It's just, hey, they're going to do to you what they want to do to you. I mean, it's a scary thing. And then one of the final things that really, this is what everybody sort of found out about, and that did get reported, was the prosecution sent a email to my lawyer, to every lawyer that I had on my team at the time, to other lawyers who were representing guys that were on my side. That email had a spyware in it that if they clicked on the email or replied to it, they would be able to get into all of our evidence, everything that we had. So they got thank God my lawyer caught it and was like, what the hell is this? He replied back to the prosecution and was like, please tell me this is not what I think it is. And never got a reply back. We brought it up, complained about it, investigated it, and it came out that, yes, the prosecution, this prosecutor named Chris Chaplack, and also the NCIS agent schemed up a plan to spy on us to get all of our information. So the prosecutor, the remedy for that was not dropping the case. It was, we'll just kick this prosecutor out and put in another one. Now, if that happened in civilian court, my case would have been dropped, and also that prosecutor would have been locked up in prison. That's because he broke forget how many rights at that time. But those are some of like the, minute or bigger things. And there was so much stuff in between that, it would take me hours to go through, but that will all be in the book. I mean, it gets disgusting, just how far these guys would go to try and get a win. It's pretty bad.
I can't think of anything more admirable than, being in our military and being someone that kind of lived through some of the 9/11 or seeing 9/11 and reacting to it, like a Pat Tillman, or we've heard of all these people that are like, yeah, I saw 9/11, saw what happened, and I felt compelled that I personally had to do something about it. I love this country and I want to defend it. And then to go through what you're going through and what you went through, I'm really massively impressed by the fact that I don't really hear, you sound upset by it more so than like disgruntled by it. Like, you don't sound like you're not a believer in our military. It doesn't sound like you're not a believer in the United States of America. It sounds like you're still Team America. You're still part of it all, which is amazing, to be patriotic after serving the country, doing all the things that you did, doing all the right things, doing what everyone views as being really admirable. And it does appear that you're hurt by it. It does appear that you are, I can kind of see it in your eyes, even just talking through this Zoom call. But it doesn't seem like, I'd never heard you once raise your voice or say those motherfuckers, or like, I haven't heard any of that from you. So, it's just impressive to me of how tough you are mentally. That is really impressive, because I don't know, I'm thinking like, I wouldn't be able to respond the same way. So, congrats to you on that. That's impressive.
Yeah. Thanks for that compliment. And, I do get asked all the time, especially, like, oh, what are your thoughts on the Navy? What are your thoughts on the SEAL teams? And I give the same response. Like, I was proud and I was honored to be able to serve the 20 years that I did. if my kids wanted to join, I'd let them join. I think it's one of the most honorable professions you can have. And the big thing is I will not blanket statement a whole organization because of a few bad actors. I think that's what goes on a lot now in today's society, where it's like, are there bad cops? Yeah. Do you know how many cops there are? There's tons of them. Is there a couple bad apples in there? Probably. There's bad apples in any environment. But I think because those two bad apples or whatever get blasted into the media, that everybody all cops are bad, or all this group is bad, because, and that, that's on both sides of the fence when you're talking, politically. So I won't go down that road. I'm like, I love the SEAL teams. There were just some bad actors who made some bad decisions, and that's the end of it, and I try to keep that attitude.
Yeah. It seems like a massive part of your career, but really you had nearly 20 years of a lot of success and a lot of great things. And probably, even though there's some heartache and some things that you saw that you maybe rather not see, but it sounds like, it was an illustrious career in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah. It's, the stuff that I did in my career is whatever. It's the men that I got to serve with. I got to walk amongst giants. I got to work with heroes. I mean, I've lost, I don't know how many friends, but it's, to spit on that would be a disgrace. To spit on that service is a disgrace to them and to the guys that I worked with. I mean, those guys are heroes. They're still heroes. They're doing the job right now. And we should be grateful that we have men and women that exist and that want to do that career.
With all your experiences, the friends that you mentioned that you've lost, and all the experiences that you had in the military so far, when navigating day-to-day life now as a civilian, how do you look at life differently? If you can remember, like, right before you joined the military and had all those experiences you had, what's your perspective now? Like how do you go through your day to day, and how do you, what goes on in your head?
Oh, that'd be another hour-long discussion of what goes on in my head. But I think that transition out of the military is a very difficult thing for a lot of guys. No matter what you've gone through, you're transitioning from 20 years of your life, where most people, or 20 plus years, where most people at that point in their life they've lived in the military longer than they haven't. That's been their life. So coming out of that is definitely difficult in a way. You want to find a new purpose. You no longer are serving in the military, fulfilling your purpose, whatever that was. Now you have to find something else. And I think guys struggle. I've struggled with trying to find out what that new purpose is that will give me the drive that I had to, become a Navy SEAL, or to, do the things that I did. But I get, it's been good. I took the last year, wrote the book, as crappy as the whole COVID mess that happened, it sort of helped me out because it kept me inside and it made me focus on the book, and I got it done in a pretty good amount of time. I try to just keep a positive mindset, which is not easy all the time, especially with everything that we're inundated with constantly. It's all negative. So, I try to work on meditation, breathing, my workout. That's I have to work out every day in some form or fashion. I'm pretty big into that. And then what's really kept me grounded is just my focus on my family. It's I spent the last 20 years away from them. I wasn't around for my kids growing up when they were little. I would just be in and out. So now it's that's my main focus, is to be here, be present, and learn to sort of, learning to be a stay-at-home dad, stay-at-home husband again, which it's a process,
Yeah, I got kids, and so does Andrew. It certainly is a process. How were you able to stay connected to or were you able to stay connected to fitness and or nutrition through all of this? Being in prison for a while, did you have access to anything, or you're just doing some squats, or were you just not even thinking of, not even just your mindset's just not even, in the frame of mind to think about those things?
No, I was definitely thinking about those things in there. I think that's one of the ways that helped me sort of cope with being in there. So I put myself on a pretty regimented schedule with what I had. So I had a cell, nothing in there. I made workouts up with just calisthenics. I did a burpee workout every morning. This is
the ultimate. So here at Slingshot and at Super Training, we say lift through it. This is like the ultimate lift through it story that I've ever heard.
Yeah, it helped me keep my mind right.
Right.
Like if I didn't have that, I probably could have went down a real dark hole in there. So I would use what I had. You got supposed to get one outside. You got to go outside for an hour each day, 1 hour, and that was at night from 7 to 8. So we would go out. They had 2 pull-up bars, and then one ollie bar that had 45-pound plates welded onto it. So you are sharing that with 60 other prisoners, which sort of sucks. But I actually created a workout group with some of the other prisoners because they were like, "Hey, you want to get in shape?" So I was like, "Hey, man, yeah." I ran workouts with them during that time. Which also then allowed me to have access to all the workout equipment. So because I had a group. And I was able to work out that way. So that was, working out in there was huge. Now, the nutrition part this is actually pretty funny. So they don't feed you for shit in there. You get 20 minutes to eat your meal. You're only allowed the 3 meals a day. You're allowed nothing else in between. You can't have any food, nothing in your cell. The food that they do serve you is like the lowest grade quality, whatever of meat, whatever they're making. And they only give you they have other prisoners who are serving you. Those prisoners are only giving you like a small portion. So I was losing weight in there for the first couple months, like real quick. I had to adapt to that environment. So I would have one guard that I made friends with sneak me in Copenhagen. And I would then baggie that up they had cleaning gloves. I would bag it up to each glove, and then I would slip it to the prisoners who were serving chow for double portions. And that's how I sort of tried to keep my nutrition in balance and like try and eat healthy. I was like, "Hey, give me more meat," do stuff like that. So
what a fucking meathead. I love it.
You got to adapt to your environment and make it work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I was curious about this real quick because you mentioned you were given a military lawyer initially, but then you also mentioned that like later on you had that civilian lawyer. So I'd imagine that if the military, they're trying to do something to you and then they give you a lawyer, that seems kind of shady.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Now you're getting into a whole nother realm of it's called the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ, and just how broken that system is. So the military assigns you a lawyer. I got, a Navy JAG. You also have Navy lawyers that are prosecuting against you. And then you also have a judge who's a Navy lawyer that just was in long enough to become a judge. All those people work for each other. So when you have, when the prosecution was doing all of this illegal shit to me, it was evident. My JAG was very hesitant to call them out on anything because he's like, they might write my evals one day. I might work for them one day. So their careers are all on the line when it comes to doing their jobs, which right there, you will not get fair representation. So you're not getting somebody that's like fully invested in you and trying to, prove your innocence. You're getting someone that's like, "Oh, well, I'll help you out as much as I can. Look, as long as it doesn't hurt my career." So, and that happens to everybody in the military. I mean, when I got locked in military prison, I met a lot of people that didn't belong in there. I met a lot of people who were duped by this corrupt system that They literally, so I'll back up a second. The military prison, what we call that is a plea bargain factory. So what they do is just like they did to me. They throw guys in there before they're even charged, threatening them like, yep, you're going away. We're going to hold you in here. While you're in there awaiting your trial, they'll constantly tell you like, the case is done. Like you're guilty. It's not looking good unless like we suggest you take a plea deal. So guys at that point, and you got to think a lot of people in the military cannot afford civilian lawyers. So they don't have the luxury of getting the best defense for them. So guys at that point are sort of at a stalemate and they're like, well, I'll just take the plea deal then. If I'm going to get, they'll be like, oh, well, and what they do is they threaten them at first with like 50 years. They're like, oh, you're going to be in here for 50 years. They're like, oh, unless you plead guilty and we'll only give you 6. And so that, after you're leaving a 20-something, a lot of these kids are like 21 years old as well because they popped on a piss test or something, for smoking weed or, they get thrown in. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So they take the plea deal because they're like, well, 50 or 6 years, I'll just take the 6. That's how the Navy or the military or UCMJ keeps their prosecution rating so high because that's just a win for them.
So so other than having like the stats for it, what's in it for them? Because you think if like a private prison, they'll have inmates and they basically they can work for pennies on the dollar. What's in it for them to try to keep giving these plea deals to keep people locked up?
So there's a lot of money made in the military prisons. So when you're in there, to even use the phone, you have to have, I don't forget the exact numbers, but it was like $1 a minute or a little bit less than that. Mm-hmm. So you had to pay all this money to use the phone in there. That money goes to the military prison. So therefore it's like, it's better for them to keep as many prisoners in there. They also charge you if you want toothpaste, all this stuff, they overcharge you for everything. And that money goes directly to them. So there is sort of a hidden deal, with the prosecution and the military prison. Like, hey, we're bringing you another batch of guys. Like, cool. Or we just lost, a couple guys just got out. Oh, we got some guys to fill their spots. It's pretty disgusting. Now, I know that's sort of like going down a rabbit hole, but I mean, I saw it firsthand. It's there. So I think that's in their best interest to also keep, the prosecution ratings high and then also keep guys locked up.
How are you with your kids? Are you able to instill some of the things you learned in the military that were maybe considered like cold or hard? Or are you just a big softy and they run all over you?
I'm a big softy. They definitely run all over me. I with my kids, like especially in the career field I was in, since like I said, I was never home. So when I was home, I was like the fun time guy. I was like, hey, let's do. I'd spoil them. Where my poor wife was like pretty much a single mom raising them on her own and being like, you come home and you don't discipline enough. You don't do this. And I've definitely, that's the growing part this past year of being out. I'm like, all right, trying to be more present and disciplining them and like staying on top of them. And also find that fine balance between, discipline is not yelling at them. Discipline is like sitting them down, talking to them, telling them like, hey, this is right or wrong. Definitely not trying to use the military approach at all. Right. If they want to join the military, they'll get that there.
Right. like Mark mentioned, when you do talk about the military, you still have you still know that the good ideals are still there. You haven't been like bad mouthing it. So I'm actually curious, like when it comes to like if your son, because I think you said your dad was in the Army, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So like if your son wanted to join the military, or we got a lot of listeners that are probably considering, right? What kind of things would you tell them to maybe think about? Because it's not like, again, the military is bad. What happened to you is horrible, but that's not everything, right? So what should one kind of think about before taking that leap?
Well, I would definitely go in with a plan. So if you are thinking of joining, and I've told my son this as well, my oldest. I have an old son. He's 20. He's going to turn 21 this year. But so he was considering it. So I told him, I was like, "Yeah, I want to go with you, just to double check." But to anybody else, I would say have a plan. What's your motives for joining? What are you joining for? And it doesn't have to be, I want to go to war, shoot bad guys. It's like maybe you want to learn. I mean, you can pretty much learn any career path you want in the military. And that's what I would say to people like, hey, get a career path that you can use on the out when you get out that's going to set you up for success. I wouldn't go in with the mindset of I'm just going to stay in and do my 20 years. I would take it chunk by chunk. Go in with that plan, start executing that plan when you get in. Like say you want to be a welder. The Navy has like probably some of the top welding schools you can go to. And then when you get out, you can apply those skills. But then you never know. You might join and you actually might like the structure of the military. You might, because it is, there's sort of a comfort in it. You get used to it, and then you also know your schedule. You sort of know what's coming. And if you want to, stay in for the 20, then I would start looking on, ways to advance and to make as much money as you can in the military. Because that's the other thing I would tell people is like the pay is not as good as the recruiter's telling you it is. I mean, it's enough to survive, and it enough to make you comfortable, but just be prepared for that as well. Yeah, that's what I would tell people. I think that's the most important thing is have a plan before you join. When's
your book going to be ready?
So that's sort of the unknown right now. So we turned it into DOD. It's so because I was a SEAL and because I wrote a book and talk about certain things, it has to go through a DOD review process. So it goes to the Pentagon and gets passed around until everybody approves it. And during that, they could be like, "Oh, you're not allowed to say this," and sort of black out certain things in the book. It's definitely taking a long time. It's been there since last September, and that's the one sort of frustrating thing is we aren't in control of that. We can't, they're going to give it back when they give it back. The big worry is because it doesn't make the Navy look good. Maybe somebody's holding on to it on purpose. But I mean, either way, I knew that it was going to take a while going into it. We are hoping and praying that within the next month and a half, they'll release it. So once it's released from them, it'll be about another month of getting it ready to get public, go to the pub date and be out. So I'm hoping and praying like this summer it's going to be out in stores.
Is it frowned upon by some other military personnel, maybe to speak out against the military, or like, have you lost kind of friends over some of that kind of thing? I guess the book's not out yet, but does anyone give a shit about that or not really?
Nope. And I had a very hard time writing a book because of that ideal. I grew up thinking that you should never write books about what you've done. You're the quiet professional. Of course, that has changed. There's tons of SEAL books out. So I was like, oh, I'm just another SEAL writing a book. And I called my friends who are still in. I talked to multiple of them. I was like, hey, and they were like, no, everybody was on board. Like, you need to tell this story. This needs to be told to everybody, by you to everybody, so everybody can hear the truth. I've gotten no pushback on it at all, except I'm sure some of the higher ups are not going to be too happy about it, but it is what it is. I mean, it happened. So. Where can people continue to follow along with some of your life and your story? You got Instagram and stuff like that. You want to share that with us? Yeah. So it's at Eddie_Gallagher at Instagram. I also have our own website, theeddygallagher.com. You can follow along there and see, what I'm doing. And I'm also promoting, other businesses, helping other businesses, especially working with Redcon One, and Aaron Singerman, who's just a phenomenal human being. And I'm also working with Nine Line, and I'm working with a tactical store that's local to me, to Precision Tactical. I'm making ARs on there and selling them, and also some brass knuckles. Yeah, and we're coming out with a pistol here next week.
Wow.
So that's going really well. Yeah, so we're going to continue to build on that. It's my Seek Battle brand. So, we started getting that going last year, and we're hoping to just expand it more this year.
And that can all be found on your website?
Yeah.
Are we able to buy those weapons in California?
Yep, we make them California compliant.
Nice.
If need be. Yeah.
Sick.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome. Man, there was a lot there. I feel like
That guy's strong, man.
yeah, that that prison group pretty much made a prison CrossFit team.
Yeah, right. Just must have been really brutal to go through all that, and then he still seems like he doesn't seem like he's like pissed off about it. Seems like he just is. He seems like he's frustrated by it, but yeah, it didn't seem like it. Just seemed like he's
He like understands that if he does go crazy, it's not gonna look good.
right.
For sure he wants to.
Yeah.
Like you don't go through all that and have that stoic face like that without knowing for sure that like this is what I have to do right now.
Everyone's paying attention and watching.
Right.
Or just maybe he just has that much control, man. Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
When you do something, like when you have that type of job for 20 some odd years, like either your personality hardens to be able to handle the stress, or you see some guys break, right? He's definitely not broken, right? So like, I would assume that what he went through with all of this probably doesn't compare to what he's done and seen on the battlefield. I would assume. That would just be my assumption. I could be totally wrong, but I mean, shit. Yeah.
What he said about having a skill that you can utilize when you're out of the military, I think that was really, really useful for anybody that's thinking about it. Because I have a friend right now who's been in for, I think, nearly 20 years. And with his profession of what he has, it's really, it's not very useful. I guess he could like, perhaps continue to pursue it, but it just doesn't really make any sense. Like it's not a very common job. Obviously there's like leadership traits that like, if somebody was to apply here and they said like, I don't know what I can do, but I was a Marine, I'd be like, well, I'd imagine that you can do something.
Yeah.
Same if someone came here and they said, I don't have much education, but I'm a black belt in judo. I'd be like, all right, well, that shows a sign of something, or I deadlift 900 pounds.
That's what college is pretty much. I mean, like when people apply for jobs,
little stamp next to your name kind of thing.
Yeah, like because people apply for jobs and their major has nothing to do with that job, but some employers look at it like, well, you did 4 years of this and you completed it. Like that's, so I mean, shoot.
Yeah, you had to show up on time, you had deadlines, you had different things you needed. And with the military, you're just thinking, shit, this guy, must be, put together. But I think that's important. Like what's the skill that you want to learn, and what's something that you may want to be involved in even when you do retire. So, man, there's a lot of great stuff from Eddie today. And I loved his kind of lift through it story, how he was still training and 135 pounds to share with 60 other people, and how he got a little extra protein.
Yeah.
Talk about protein leveraging. Using tobacco.
Wow, he was using tobacco to leverage his protein intake. That's sick.
Get another scoop.
Coming out of the joint all jacked.
Man, that's crazy. And then, the 1 hour that he would get outside was when the sun was already gone.
7, 8 p.m. That was the only time you get to go outside. Prison is fucking, and dang, man, like it's crazy. I mean, you hear all the crazy stuff that goes on with the justice system here in the U.S., but then like even the military justice system,
right,
like just the pure corruption. It's scary to think about. I hope that they don't like take out too many of his words from that book, but because if they have the power to do that, then you just wonder, what are we not able to understand or get from it? But it'll be a good book when it's out, I assume. Yeah.
The prison system's a good thing to review, like we talk often on the show about the education system and how I think all three of us are believers that like, hey, it should be just like looked at. Like, let's just let's just open up some dialogue of like, let's make some changes to the education system the way that it currently is. But man, our prison system's like, and I don't pretend to have a bunch of solutions to it, but are there things that could be done that could be helpful that are probably fairly easy to implement? Probably, but are there things that if you implement this thing, now you're cutting out that other thing that gives the prison money, and you run into different things. But could you get outside during sunlight? Could you always make sure that the men and women of the prison get to see the sun set and the sun rise? It just little shit, like just, hey, you have an opportunity to go out for 15 minutes to see, but I don't know. Like, I don't know.
It's tough because there are some people that deserve to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you're like, fuck, the conversation we had yesterday with Settlage, it was like, go, I don't know if you want to retell it about like the wrestling thing when you're like, you have one of your, the guys that you coach, like, hey, I want you to go kill this guy. He's across the mat. You need to take him out. And then he like
dump him on the neck or something.
And then now that kid's paralyzed. Like, whoa, like I wanted you to take him out, but not like that.
Yeah.
So with, like prison system, it's like, yeah, we want it to be a little bit better, but maybe not for that guy right there.
Yeah. Right.
It's
you're supposed to
really
be
hard.
Supposed to be locked up. There are a lot of people that say that, you're no longer a normal citizen, but my reaction to that would just be, I guess I got two things on that. One would be, we're only as good as we treat our people that commit crimes and people that are less fortunate. So it's never good to look down on people. It's never, and then also I believe that everyone deserves multiple chances. I believe that look, maybe saying everybody is maybe a stretch, because there's some people who just have really done horrific stuff that we can kind of just face the facts with some things that are just so horrific that you're like, there's no rehabilitation process for this person, and that's where the ideas of the death penalty and shit come into mind. And it's like, I don't know if that's right or wrong, or, and then you end up with so many other issues of like, did the guy actually do what is the guy going to the electric chair? Is the guy getting killed for something that he didn't? It gets to be really messy really quick. So I'm not a fan of the death penalty because of that. If it was simple and we're like, yeah, that guy did this and we knew that, then I would be a fan of it, because I don't know what else the person's reason is to be around any longer, and if they're a threat to everybody. But taking someone's life is a fucking wild thing. And then imagine just like Eddie today, being accused of that, but also being somebody that has killed a lot of people. Like I didn't really ask him flat out, but I'm sure he's, whether it's indirect, you set out to detonate a bomb or threw a grenade, or not sure if you killed somebody, maybe never even saw or identified that you actually were the one that did that, or was it Nsima's grenade that did it, or was my grenade, or was it yours? Maybe you don't really know all the time, but I'm sure that he's participated and been part of his team killing other people.
Oh, absolutely.
But then to be wrongfully accused of like a war crime is weird. The whole thing is weird. Like you throw a grenade and then people are wounded and they're really messed up. He said everybody died except for that one guy. And then you have to help them. Like that seems weird. So but it also seems savage to like go and just, run up and stab the guy when he clearly can't defend himself anymore. But what if he can defend himself enough to where he can grab a knife out of his pocket, or you know what I mean? It's
it could quickly turn to, oh, you didn't kill him, and then he had a knife and he killed one of your guys. That's a different story now, and now he's in more shit because we lost one of our guys.
Right.
Like, holy crap! What a
lot of messy,
stuck between a rock and a hard place. God,
messy situation.
Yeah.
And when I was like again reading about all this stuff, like there's this knee-jerk reaction to be like, oh my gosh, that's like this is horrible. What's
wrong with this guy? He can't do that. Taking a picture with a dead person and stuff.
Yeah, but then like when I backed off and been like, okay, well, you always got to try and put yourself in that situation. Do you think you'd be capable? Well, doing all of that over and over and over again, it's almost like, like you start to joke around about certain things. Like me, when there was a kind of a meeting that I had with some guys when this stuff was going on last year with like George Floyd, right? So a group of like white guys and black guys met, and we all just kind of talked about the situation that was going on. And some of myself and some of the other guys, like we were laughing at situations when we got like pulled over or some bad situations that we had with police, and all of us were laughing about it. Like we just thought it was funny because shit happens a lot. And some of those the white guys were like, how can you guys laugh about this? That's so horrible. Like, well, it's like, well, this shit's kind of common. And I was like, well, that's kind of the same shit here. Like when you see things so often and you have to do things so often, well, this is just another body just taking a picture. Like it's dark humor within that context. And it's tough. Like, it's like you would never want to think that you would have the ability to do something like that. But hey, if you're put in that situation, you never really know.
And if you're conditioned at all, like if you've been through the situation multiple times, maybe somebody that has been pulled over, that has been in those situations before, maybe they're like, here we go again. The cop's going to give me shit. I think my son and my dad had some sort of thing where they got pulled over and my son was driving. I don't think my son had his license on him, and I forget exactly what happened, but, and maybe my dad wasn't with, I can't even really remember, but they just let him go. They're like, your tail light's out, and they didn't give him a fix-it ticket, nothing, And so we talked about that, and I said, they're probably just like, you're a 17-year-old kid, you're with your grandpa. Like, he's like, I couldn't believe it. The guy, like, I didn't have my license with me. He's like, I got really nervous because I was like, oh shit, like I'm gonna get a ticket or something's gonna happen. And the guy just said, hey, you got to fix your taillight and don't drive without your license. You need to have your license with you. Just got a warning. And I said, you got to think about that in comparison to what we're seeing on TV and what you hear other people experience. And he was like, yeah. He's like, I think it would have been different if I was a different color. And I said, it possibly, yeah, possibly could be. It's good to know that kind of stuff. And it's good to, just to examine that and just say, hey, like, are these things that we can make better? Like, it seems like there's a lot of things that we can work on and make better. And with all the stuff that Eddie went through, it's all stuff like I've never even thought about that before. I'm not really thinking about friends that I have getting pulled over and being harassed by police officers because I never went through it. It's not that I don't care about it. It's just like, I don't know much about it until you bring it up or until someone that I'm close to brings it up. And I'm like, holy fuck, that really sucks. When Eddie started bringing up this other side of the military, like military prison, if you would have asked me before the show, hey, what do you know about military prison? I would say zero, and I still don't know anything about it, but at least, I learned a little bit more about it, and everything he talked about sounded so backwards and wrong, and like, I'm sure it exists for a reason, and I'm sure that there's certain things they execute that work really well, but at the same time, almost everything he said sounded strange and odd, even like the lawyer that he got, and the lawyer was far away, and like, just, it's like, man, these are people that signed up, to do a job for our country. And I think everyone should be able to have some sort of representation, but you figure with these people in particular that they would get a little bit, they would get a little bit extra help.
Yeah.
Or at least, have a psychiatrist. Hey man, I came in to see how you're doing because this is a lot to handle. You want to talk about it? Like just that. I mean, they couldn't bring one person in to assist, or hey, we're going to send a psychiatrist out to your family because we know how hard this must be. Nothing. Got nothing back from that.
The fact that it was everyone that he could have seen or did see, like the lawyer was kind of on their side. Obviously, this is not even close, but my first job where like I had to do a lot of typing, I developed this weird like ganglion cysts, whatever, like out of nowhere, and I was like, this kind of hurts. I don't know. It ended up being nothing. Yeah. But I was like, I think I don't know, I got insurance now. Like, I want to see what this is all about. And I was forced to see, I forgot what it's called, but basically like the company doctor. And they're like, oh yeah, that has nothing to do with typing. I was like, I think it does. And they're like, no. It has nothing to do with your job or what your daily tasks are and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, can I see a normal doctor? Like, well, if you do it, like they made it really hard, not comparing the two.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm saying is like, I felt that was unfair. And the fact that they gave him, you know, again, somebody on their team, like that is wild. Like, holy shit, like how is that okay? And then on top of that, I don't, again, just like, you know, we've been saying, like, I don't know how this shit works, but I think it's insane that the military prisons make money off of the inmates. If they're even called them inmates, I'm not sure what the terminology is, so I apologize for that. But I don't know, man. That seems pretty freaking wild to me that they, you know, again, like Mark said, they served the country. Something happened.
You mentioned smoking pot.
Yeah.
Testing positive for like drugs.
And you think about the situations they're in, like, all right, smoke a little bit of weed and feel okay. Like, I'm sorry.
Great.
You should probably get that prescribed to everybody. Like, hey, you need to mellow out a little bit. All right, here's some weed gummies or something. But yeah, and of course, then there's like the other side where maybe somebody does belong there. But I don't know. I think that's fucking crazy. Like, hey, you signed up, then can we at least give them a phone call? You know, like that. I don't, you know, again, I mean, zero experience, zero knowledge on the whole system. It just, as a civilian from the outside looking in, it appears to be really fucked up.
Yeah. And I mean, like Mark said, like there's probably some reasons that some things are put in place. Like in military prison, you've got to imagine that, well, some of those guys have probably done some shit.
Yeah.
You know, like, so it's not like everyone in there is, you know, a victim. But I mean, when he was mentioning like the fact that, yeah, you are given this military lawyer, a lot of young guys don't have the money to get a civilian lawyer.
How scary is that?
It's like everything is, everything is against you, and you don't have a choice but to just go with what is given to you and take that. You can't really defend yourself. 60
years or 6 years. What do you think is going to be more, you know, enticing?
That reminds me of, like, you know, I mean, you heard the Central Park Five, right? Those, yeah, it was back in the 90s or late 80s, 90s. These 5 black kids were they were put in jail because they said that they raped a woman in like, you know, in a park, which they were actually innocent of. But what they did is they brought these kids in individually, and they're like, hey, if you don't say you did this, then you're going to get this, with no supervision. And they got these kids to admit to something and to tell stories different from each other by force. Like it's very reminiscent of that. And it's just fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of similarities there. I didn't want to. I was going to talk to you after the show because I just didn't want to turn people off to that. But yeah, it does seem like when the cards keep getting stacked against you, it reminds me a lot of, you know, when a black person's on trial and it's like, you know, there's a lot of shit going on.
Actually,
like,
you hear about that all the time.
Conveniently, you know, against the individual, and you know, but again, that's another conversation another day.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all stuff that you don't know much about it until you hear about it from, you know, and then if somebody does talk about it, then it sounds like they're complaining, and you're like, that's not true. Yeah. You didn't get pulled over by a cop. That didn't happen. Like, not like that. Like, what are you talking about? Why would a police officer physically grab you and remove you from the car when you were just speeding? You know, you're like, hey, it sounds unbelievable sometimes, right? When you hear somebody say something, but you know, you see it happen time and time again. You hear about it time and time again. It's like, okay, well, there's probably truth to this. We should probably investigate this, or we should work on making it better. But a lot of the stuff that's in our society, it's just been here forever. Why is this still done this way? Oh, it's because the way we've always done it. And like, well, that's fucking dumb.
It's not a good excuse.
Yeah, that sounds pretty stupid. I know it might be tough to implement some change, but it sounds like we'd be better off for it. Anyway, Andrew, take us on out of here.
I will. Real quick, that picture you just sent, shout out and huge. Did you make it way short? Congrats. There we go. He wants a second opportunity.
Everybody deserves a second shot.
Yeah, here we go. And
Oh, it's in there.
how the hell did that go?
Oh,
Jesus. Okay,
We're not
well,
very good.
Okay.
We're not good.
Congrats to another, I believe he's a Navy SEAL, Shane, and his wifey, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon.
What's that little thing's name? Any idea?
I do not know.
Looks
I
like
can
a little
ask.
burrito in that
Uh-huh.
picture. Can you bring the picture up?
I would have to email it myself.
Oh,
Are we talking about a baby?
I can actually, let's
okay.
pretend that it's up right now. Yeah, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, she had her baby, I think, sometime early yesterday.
What's his name?
I don't
We
know.
didn't get a name,
Didn't
but
get a name.
Congratulations. Ooh, it does look like a
Look at
little
that
burrito.
Little burrito.
Oh, it's cute.
Congrats, guys. You did really good job.
look at
Little
those,
baby's cute.
look at those cheeks.
Uh-huh.
Damn.
So on that note, thank you everybody for checking out today's episode. Thank you Piedmontese for sponsoring today's episode. Links down in the description below or the podcast show notes. Promo code Power Project to get you 25% off your order and free 2-day shipping on any orders of $99 or more. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Val's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. My Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima, what you got?
And Nsima Inyang on Instagram, YouTube, Clubhouse, TikTok, and Nsima Inyang on Mark.
Today was a big day. We planted a flag in the ground and started a supplement brand called Within You. Thank you guys for everybody that has bought the steak shake. By the time you listen to this, it will be
Too late.
gone. But today also is a special day to me because it would have been my brother Mike's 50th birthday. So
Man.
props to Mr. Mad Dog for forcing me to lift weights when I was a kid and I didn't want to. And to kind of get this whole entire thing started in the first place. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.